Time to set your fantasy football lineups for week 4, and we're focusing on the running back position with SI fantasy football analyst Michael Fabiano. Fabs, what do you say? Let's start with the rushers that you think people should be starting in week 4. Who do you got?
Let's start off with James Robinson. I mean, you want to talk about a guy who came out of nowhere, right? He was, what, third or fourth on the Jacksonville depth chart. They released Leonard Fournette, and suddenly he's the guy, and he has been tremendous. I mean, he's been a steal in drafts or off the waiver wire. He's averaging nearly 18 touches and over 20 fantasy points per game this season. He's in a really good spot in week 4 against the Bengals. Their defense has really struggled against running backs. They're giving up an average of 155.3 rushing yards per game and the 5th most fantasy points to running backs. So this is a good spot for James Robinson. And then Daryl Henderson, another player who was either a late round pick or picked up off the waiver wire. It looks like we have clarity in this backfield in Los Angeles, and it's Daryl Henderson. He's looked just tremendous. I mean, look at the numbers. He's averaged 6.1 yards per rush. He's averaged the 11th most fantasy points among running backs over the last 2 weeks. He's got a good matchup this week against the Giants, who've allowed 8 runs of 10-plus yards and the 9th most fantasy points to running back. So if Daryl Henderson is on your roster, he should also be in your starting lineup.
Now, you brought up James Robinson from the Jaguars. Let's talk about the former Jaguars starter in Leonard Fournette, cut earlier this season. You're saying he's a person that you want on your bench this week, and so is Sony Michel. Why is that?
Number one, I need a crystal ball because I can't figure out the Buccaneers backfield. I can't. We thought it was going to be Fournette in week 3, and it was Ronald Jones. And Bruce Arians hates our fantasy football teams, right? So here's the situation. You can start one of the other. It is an absolute coin toss. It is a dart throw at this point because we're not sure who is going to lead that team in touches on a regular basis. And then couple that with the fact that they've got a matchup against the Chargers, who held both Joe Mixon and Clyde Edwards-Helaire mostly in check earlier this season. And Fournette, well, that's a recipe for fantasy disaster. I would sideline him. And then Sony Michel, don't chase the points. Like, I get it. He had 117 rushing yards last week. He was very good. But most of those yards came on 2 long runs, one of 38, one of 48. And Michel's still not seeing enough snaps or enough touches to really be consistent from a fantasy perspective. Rex Burkhead is the running back to start in New England right now. So I know the Chiefs, they aren't great against running backs, but the lack of volume for Sony Michel is a big problem for me. So I keep him on the sidelines despite a good performance in week 3.
Michael Fabiano and our team of high-stakes fantasy football league winners are here to help you with the most important position. Who do you put in your lineups for week number 4? It's time to join the club, people. Become a member of SI Fantasy Plus for just 34 cents a day.